Target Congress. A presentation by Dr. Matania Ginosar, National Director of Target Nuclear Disarmament. With comments by Admiral Eugene Caroll and Dr. Benjamin Spock. With an introduction by actor Mike Farrell.
Hi, my name is Mike Farrell. Some of you know me as B.J. Honeycutt from MASH. Others of you don't know me at all. In fact, while I am an actor, I am primarily a citizen of the United States, and as such I believe strongly in the fact that if you belong to a participatory democracy, it requires that you participate. I think citizen participation is really the remedy for the ills that affect our nation today, and in large part, because of the influence of our nation, the world today. I've become involved with an organization begun by a man who you will meet in the following tape. His name is Matania Ginosar, Dr. Matania Ginosar. Matania has a somewhat interesting history. I'll let him tell you about it to the degree he feels necessary. He worked in the defense industry. He has worked in the government, or with government programs, I should say. And he knows a great deal about the development and use, potential use of nuclear weaponry. As a result of his knowledge, he has come to the decision that a lot of people don't make, that he step outside that industry and make use of his knowledge to arm through forewarning his fellow citizens of this country and try and find a way to help them organize their abilities, organize their knowledge, and in fact form organizations that can put specific pressures on members of Congress so that they will vote in the sane way. You'll hear from Dr. Ginosar in the following tape, and I hope you pay attention to it, because what he has to say, I think, has possibilities of being the beginnings of a very powerful organization in this country, an organization of citizens who have been armed with information and the ability to make use of that information.
So let me start with my background. I came to the United States about 35 years ago from Israel. I was there in the Israeli underground. I was in prison. I escaped. I was in the Israeli Air Force. And I got a very bad taste for war there. About a third of my classmates and many of my friends died there in different wars. When I came to the United States, I went to University of Washington to get a bachelor and a master in electrical engineering. Then I was a teaching assistant at MIT. And then I joined the military-industrial complex, working for the military as a civilian, designing different command and control equipment. Some of these equipment were involved in the command of nuclear weapons. For example, nuclear weapon against somebody were one of the things that I was involved. I also learned a lot when I worked for the military-industrial complex, such as companies Litton Industry and Honeywell and others. I was involved in research and development, in engineering, in manufacturing. But I was especially trained sometime during my career with respect to nuclear weapon, because I had to train my own staff as a manager how to design equipment that will be useful for withstanding nuclear war. And that was not a very easy thing to do. In addition, my introduction to the nuclear issue was about 25 years ago in the University of California. I was at UCLA getting my second master in management. And what happened, we had a 6-month course. We were asked, could you protect Los Angeles from a nuclear attack? Most of us were people that were working for the military industry, and the conclusion after 6 months was that you cannot do anything. After working for Litton Industry for a number of years, I switched to a position which is called Manager of Techno-Economic Department. It has a relationship to what we are doing today in the nuclear disarmament movement, at least from my point of view. I was involved in trying to understand the complexity of the issue. For example, I had a staff of people, and we were trying to analyze every important problem from the company from respect to manpower, respect to customer, technology, future technology trend, and so forth. So I had to go and try to solve complex problem and find some practical solution to it. And I did it for a number of years, and according to management, very successfully. And we changed a number of directions because of what my staff and I did. At that time of my career, after about 16 years, I decided I'd rather go and take my energy and put it in something more human-oriented. And I decided to go and to move into the environmental field. I went to UCLA again, and I got my doctorate in environmental science from UCLA. After that, I went to work for the state of California in Sacramento in the California Energy Commission, and I was the head of the solar office and the head of the wind energy program. Right now, there's only one place in the world there's a large-scale wind energy, and that's in California. One place in the world. Over $1 billion was invested in wind energy in California by private industry. And that was because of the determination of myself, because I sold it to the legislature. I forced my management to put it through, although they objected. And after a lot of people helped me, we worked together, and eventually we put wind energy on the map in California. The same kind of thing we can do. Right now, what I want to tell you is we need to win a majority in Congress. And it seemed like a dream today. How can we, the peace community, do anything of that nature? But if we are determined and if we are working together, we can do it. It takes time, it takes energy, and it takes patience, but we can achieve it. So in 1981, after working for a number of years for the Energy Commission, I started hearing this new administration talking about winnable nuclear war in Europe, and so forth. And then it started to bother me. I said, I remember that everything I learned in nuclear war, the only thing you can do is to prevent it. There is nothing you can do to win it. What is going on? And I decided to study the subject in more depth, because before I look at it from a technical point of view, I wanted to see more clearly what is involved. Remember that I have the background of seeing a lot of people dying in different circumstances in the kibbutz, in the underground, and other places. I was in the military and studied about nuclear weapon. As a doctorate in environmental science, I understand nuclear winter and things that relate to that aspect. All of these combined together impressed me so much by studying different books and talking to a lot of people for about 6 months that the issue is much more serious than I thought. And it finally dawned on me that if I want to do anything, I'll have to resign and work full-time against nuclear war. Because I knew I cannot dabble in anything a little. I have either to be in it or not be in it. It was a very difficult process for me. It took me about 6 months of soul-searching what to do, because I wanted to resign. I do not want to accept, and I do not accept any money for my work for nuclear disarmament, because once you are involved in getting a salary and so forth, you start to propagate maybe the point of view of one organization as another. This way I'm free from it. And I know by cutting my income at about 4 to 1, it will be difficult. And I wasn't so sure that I can be such a big hero, and I need to know if I can sit down patiently and do this kind of work year after year. That's why it took me 6 months of soul-searching. Everybody that I knew was against me. My ex-wife, my current wife, my kids, my best friends, people in Israel. There was nobody that could see any sense in what I'm trying to do. But I felt that my inner self told me that that's the direction I need to go. And in 1982, about 5 years ago, I resigned. And I decided to spend some time, at least the first year, in trying to understand what's going on. And in the same time, I had a lot of people teaching me, both at the local level, state level, and national level. I learned a lot from Common Cause and Sane about the political area. When I was working for the state of California, I took a 6-month course in how to lobby congressperson. And it was people from the legislature and the staff were appearing that week after week and telling us what they're doing. When I worked with the state of California in the Energy Commission, I learned to influence legislature in order to have our program too, and also to influence national energy legislation. So that slowly moved me into the direction of political power, because my background is such that I would like to do things that are practical and achievable. And I thought to myself, over 40 years we are working on the peace issue. The nuclear bomb, the first one was thrown in 1945. We are talking about many, many years, and nothing concretely happened, because the large number of nuclear weapons that is both owned by us and the USSR does not indicate any progress as far as I'm concerned. What is missing? And I realized what is missing is power. What we have is idea, good heart, and there are no better people that I met in the peace community in all my life. These are dedicated people, eager to help, nothing for them personally. But we do not have the power. And power in the United States is either in money or political power. We don't have the hundreds of millions to influence what's going on in different areas, but we can gain the political power. And from the input from many, many people, I decided to concentrate on the political area. And that's what I want to talk to you about. We'll have this presentation in 3 parts. The first one will be about the danger of nuclear war, because I want to leave with you the clear realization that no matter what's happening in Europe and the possible reduction of 50% of nuclear weapons and so forth in the next 5 to 10 years, that would not make a difference because the nuclear danger is increasing. Then the next thing that we'll discuss what's happened on a national scale in Washington and what's happened in the political arena there as far as our program is concerned. And the third area, we'll be discussing with you what you can do in your own congressional district in order to make a difference. So let's start with number one, the danger of nuclear war. What I want to show you with this graph is that we are moving from mutual assured destruction into first strike. This is time. This is 1945. This is the danger or the likelihood, I think likelihood would be better, of nuclear war. As the number of weapons increase, of course, everything increased. But about here in 1988-89 period, we are going to have a very important weapon beginning into being deployed, the Trident II submarine, and I want to discuss that in a minute. When we had in the past mutually assured destruction, basically what it says, I have enough weapon that if you attack me first, I can devastate you back in return. It was to prevent nuclear war. Basically, it said no side would benefit by starting a nuclear war. It was against cities, it was inaccurate weapons. This administration, and actually it started with Carter, is moving to first strike weapon by having weapons such as the Trident II, which is the most important one. The MX is a very accurate weapon. In order to have a first strike, basically what it says, I will attack first to destroy almost all your weapons, as many as I can. Instead of against city, it's against weapon. To destroy the enemy force that they cannot retaliate. And let's look how it's being implemented as far as the Trident II is concerned. The Trident II is, according to the administration, an improvement or a technical improvement on the Trident I submarine. But there is no relationship between the two. The Trident I submarine, it's basically a mutually assured destruction weapon, retaliatory weapon. It's not very accurate and it's small. When you go to the Trident II, and you go to its most important things, the V5 missile, and I'm only talking shortly, and it will be a small part of the presentation about weapon, because I want you to realize that we are being lulled to sleep by this administration and by Congress. And we shouldn't sit down, shouldn't be quiet. What happened is, this weapon, which according to the administration is a small technical improvement, is completely different. This is a first strike weapon because it has the following characteristic. It has a very high accuracy, which means if you have a weapon here, in the past, you could maybe hit it but a few thousand feet away, and you come closer and closer. Now, the Trident II can be within 300 feet of that point. It has half a megaton, versus this one have only 100,000, and there are about 5,000 warheads. So when you have the combination of a lot of power, very high accuracy, and many weapons, you have the ability to send at least 1, 2, or 3 warheads against every target, which means if I was the USSR and I'll sit down in my position and look what the United States is developing, it doesn't matter what we are saying. The question is what we are doing. I'll look at that weapon and say, God help us if they believe in God. And I say, look, they can destroy every one of our nuclear weapons in the ground, our submarines that are in base, and our airfield, and so forth. Basically, if you look on the power of the USSR now and what can happen under different kind of weapons, you'll have something like that. If we can represent the US nuclear weapon right now in this graph, about 70% are ICBM, which are in the ground in known location, but 26% of it are in the sea, in submarine, and about 4% of it are in airfield and aircraft. Basically, after the T1, Trident I attack, there'll be a small reduction, and especially because here, instead of 1,400 warhead, and I want you to see this number because they're important. At the present time, the USSR has about 1,400 missiles in the ground in ICBM. If the Trident I attack, about 1,200 will remain. So that means the USSR does not have to worry they'll be emasculated. If we go, instead of the Trident I, we go in the Trident II and attack them, from these 1,400, listen to what will happen. 3 missiles will remain in the ground. If I was in the USSR, it seemed to me I would be frightened because all of these portions, the ICBM essentially disappear from my capability, which is 70% of my ability to retaliate. So if I'm a USSR in command, I'll say I cannot take the risk, and I have to have a preemptive attack. I'll better attack first, because otherwise, anytime the United States won't, and over the next 10 years, we'll have all the fleet of the Trident II already in the sea. So I have to have a preemptive attack, and I'll better attack them first. We can sit here and say, look, we cannot trust this bastard. You know what they are, which means anytime they want, they can attack us. We'll better start first. So either side may feel threatened and want to start. So basically what happened, I showed you before, the likelihood of nuclear war is increasing substantially because we have this kind of development. It doesn't matter if we eliminate all nuclear weapons in Europe. It doesn't matter if we eliminate 50% of all intercontinental ballistic missiles or whatever, unless we eliminate the threat to the USSR by our action. And it doesn't matter what we are saying, it matters what we are doing. In addition, and I don't want to elaborate it, we have very good attack submarine that can eliminate most of their nuclear weapons at sea, and they have lousy attack submarine, and we have a very strong edge above them, and they are frightened. And if the Trident II will be in production, we'll have a very good likelihood of nuclear war. And the problem is that only 100 members of Congress out of 435 vote against the Trident II. There is blindness there, and we have to do something about it.
Today we can deter nuclear war with the weapons we have. The weapons we're trying to build, the new MX system, the Trident II system, the Star Wars system, are designed to fight and win a nuclear war. They won't deter war. They make war a near certainty in this century.
So what I want to do now is discuss Section 2, which is what we can do about it. We the people. We live in the United States, and we have a representative government, and we can do what we want if we set our mind to do it. And that's what I want to show you. The good news is we must gain power in Congress. How do we gain power of Congress? We get power in Congress to get a majority in the House. We need to get a majority in the House of Representatives, and I want to show you why. By gaining a power in the House, we will be able to slow down, if not to stop, eventually, the development of all new nuclear weapons. Let's look what's going on in Washington. Anytime the administration wants a weapon, they have to ask for money. Nothing happens in the United States unless money is involved. And all nuclear weapons are being approved by Congress, maybe at a larger extent or smaller extent. So what we have to do, we have to stop the amount of money that go to the administration. How do they get money? First of all, the Department of Defense go to the administration and say, we want to do the following thing. The administration make a request to the House of Representatives and to the Senate at the same time. Each one evaluate the bill the way they want it, and they come up to a conference. And after the conference, which they agree, the result go to the president. It can accept it or veto it. The House is much more liberal. The Senate is conservative. Although there is a majority for the Democratic Party here, if you look at the voting record of the senators here, you'll see that this is a conservative body at the present time. You'll have very hard time to influence the Senate. There's another reason why it's difficult. Senators are elected for 6 years. And usually when you elect, I'm talking about large states like California and like New York, about maybe half or a large number of congressional districts are conservative. So although the House, you're working in a congressional district and you can influence an individual within a congressional district, to influence a senator on a statewide basis is extremely difficult. So because there's 6 years election, because it's difficult to affect the complete state, and because the senators are fairly independent, and we did statistical analysis of the voting record of senators from different states, we don't have the ability to influence senators as much. So what we have to do, whenever we can, we have to preserve these senators if they are with us and help them to remain in the Senate, like Cranston, and we have to do our best to replace those that we are against, like Wilson. In the House of Representatives, The situation is different, but it's still not as good. Although in this conference, many times the Senate win, one of the reasons is because the majority we have in the House is fairly marginal. If you look, here's what's happening in the House of Representatives. There are 435 members. 175 are with the administration. Out of these 435 members, we have about 100 that are with us, like Congressman Matsui, Congressman Delom, Boxer, and other people like that. We have about 160 that are swings. None of these numbers are accurate. They vary from here to here, and they vary by the record, but that's about the same. What we want to do is to concentrate on this area and to convert these swings, or many of these, or most of them, into supporters. And what we can do it by putting tremendous amount of pressure from each and every congressional district on these swings. And that's what we'll discuss next. Let's look at the House of Representatives. Out of these 435 members, typically 15 to 20, sometimes more, are not there because they are sick, out of the country, and so forth. So you have about 420. To get a majority divided by 2, you have 210. To be on the safe side, you need to add at least 10 because not everybody would be there. So we need at least 220 to be with us. These 100 plus 120 from here. If you look at the vote about many issues that relate to the nuclear issue, which is very touch and go, most of the time is about 200 versus 220. If we win or lose, these numbers are always about that range.
The only way we're going to get a change in our programs and policies is through Congress. We're going to have to get key congressmen, key senators to vote to withhold the money needed for the new weapons and for nuclear testing that makes them possible.
It's also important to realize that money spent by the Pentagon in congressional districts have little impact on the voting Congress on the nuclear issue. But we did statistical studies, and there's no other organization we found out that did it across the country, and we compare the amount of money that DoD, Department of Defense, spend in each every state or congressional district versus the voting record of that congressperson or senator. We study both the state and the individual. Votes only on the nuclear issue. It doesn't hold necessarily in, you're talking about tanks on an airplane or anything like that. Senators and congressmen treat the nuclear issue considerably more seriously. We found out not only there's no relationship, but between the amount of money the Department of Defense spend and the voting record of this individual, actually it's opposite. For example, there are two areas that tremendous amount of money is spent by the Department of Defense on research and development and other items. This is in the Los Angeles area in the state of Massachusetts. In both of these areas, we have congresspersons that are with us essentially 100% on every issue, including the Trident II. Where do you have the administration strength? In Wyoming, in Utah, in Alaska. When you look at it, there's very little amount of money spent by the Pentagon in those areas. Maybe in Alaska a little more because of some military bases and small population. But there's absolutely no correlation in anything, exactly the opposite correlation between money by the Department of Defense and the voting record of senator and congressperson on the nuclear issue. Another question is, does grassroots pressure help? What I told you before, in order to win the people in the House of Representatives, we need to put pressure on swings. How do you put pressure on swings? We'll discuss in a minute. One example is the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association is the most successful organization in the United States to get its way to Congress, both in the House and the Senate. Why? Because they put all their important emphasis on one thing: pressure swing congresspersons and senators by a large number of letters and phone calls. Because again and again we found that 85% to 90% of the public, for example, is for gun control against the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association that doesn't advertise, doesn't have television commercial, they have very little as far as attempt to influence the public. What they do, they put all their emphasis, or at least most of their emphasis, in pressuring swing in the Senate and the House. And every time you look at what they want, they get, because they focus their attention. What I'm proposing here is we'll also focus our attention like a bazooka. I don't know if you know what is a bazooka. A bazooka is a very small weapon that a foot soldier can carry on his shoulder and can explode the very thick wall of a tank. Steel wall this time or this thick. How? Because the charge is designed to put all the energy, small charge, into a very small point, and it penetrates this steel. That's the kind of thing I like us to do. I want us to concentrate on effectiveness, to be effective. One of the things that we cannot afford in this movement is to spread our resources and our time and money very widely and waste it. Why? Because we don't have much of it. What we have to concentrate in the area that we really are likely to achieve results. Now, it's important to educate the public. The more media event that we can, it's good. Direct action, I have tremendous admiration for these people, but all of these would not lead us to any effect on Congress unless we take all of this energy and eventually we turn it into pressuring swing. So the education is necessary, the direct action is very good, and so forth. But in order to be effective and achieve a result, let's concentrate where we can make the most good. Now let's go and see what we can do to achieve this kind of power. Again, what I'm talking about, I want us to get political, and I want to emphasize it again and again, political power. It's not enough to have good ideas, it's not enough to wish nuclear disarmament, and not enough to talk about it. We need power, because only with power we will change what's going on. And to gain this power, I want us to concentrate on the House of Representatives, and I want us to get a majority there. Because it's possible to do, it's practical to do. That's not a dream. Because every time you pressure a swing congressperson and pressure it viably, you achieve result. I was recently in Washington, and I talked to a number of peace lobbyists. They told me a number of things. First of all, they told me, unless there is pressure in the congressional district on the congressperson, we can go and talk until we are blue in the face, either to the staff and the congressperson, and nothing will happen. They only start to listen to us when they get pressure from the congressional district. Then they're saying, aha, that makes some difference. Until they don't get the pressure, they don't listen to us. Another thing they told me, today, when you get 25 letters, look how little it is, per congressional district, it's considered heavy mail on the nuclear issue, except on popular issues such as Star War. But anything that is not very well known, like Trident II and things of that nature, 25 letters is a heavy mail. On the MX several years ago, they used to get hundreds of letters. So it can show you what happened. The nuclear disarmament movement, for a variety of reasons, is not involved in this process, and there is no pressure. If you analyze the success we had in the House of Representatives in the last 2 years, it's amazing that with this little amount of pressure, such a few number of letters from the congressional district, the congressperson vote with us so much. And I think that's something we have to realize, because if we'll succeed creating considerably more pressure, the likelihood that they'll respond is very good. Not each one of them will respond, but majority of them could respond to that pressure. So what do you do? What you do is try to build pressure in your own congressional district. How do you do it? You want to generate a large number of letters on your congressperson. Now let's look at the congressional district. Congressional district can be looked at something like that for simplicity. There are 525,000 people in each and every congressional district in the country, and of course there are some variation. We can have a small number of people here that will give the impression that a large number of people want. We should have 1 or 2 people that are staff. We hire these people to do the work. These people work with an executive committee in the local area. This executive committee composed of representatives of many different national groups, such as Common Cause, maybe sometimes SANE. As individuals, they work together to raise money and to direct the effort of this staff. And then what we do, we get something in the order of 1,000 people per congressional district to be trained and motivated to write letters on a regular basis. Now, why 1,000 people can make impression on a congressional district is about 500,000 people? Because each letter that we write is equivalent typically between 300 or maybe sometimes as many as 400, depending on the issue, the view of 300 or 400 people. The letter that we write, if we write it our own handwriting, if we write it our sometime letterhead if we have, if we don't use form letters, if we don't use a postcard, if we write our view to a congressperson, it represents to the congressperson the view of many more people because very few people write. So that's the simple technique to get leverage. We want to get leverage on the congressperson by writing letters, and we influence 1,000 people to do it.
Efforts such as Project Target Congress to focus the attention of the American public on letter writing, on getting in touch with congressmen and senators and telling them what you think, what you believe, what you want, are very important, and I think will really make a difference if you're consistent and persistent. Don't give up with the first letter. Write 10, write 20, write 100.
We work with many groups, local groups of liberal people, and we select and we reach out 1,000 out of about 100,000 people in each congressional district that are supporters of the basic idea of freeze and nuclear disarmament. When you look at the 500,000 people, we found that statistically there are many more than 100,000, at least in California, and it's sometimes much better in other states, even conservative congressional district. There are at least 100,000 people that support this idea. So we select 1,000 of them by reaching out to as many people as we can. What we do later, we make a personal transformation. And that's important. People do not understand why they have to pressure the congressperson. Many people do not trust the political process, especially people in the disarmament community. The more dedicated they are, the more they are angry at the congressperson, usually, if they are not with us. So what we want to do, we want to make a personal transformation of the people. Instead of hating our congressmen or not willing to work with Congress, realize this is the very important tool that our Constitution gave us. Congress is our tool to get our way. So we spend approximately 1 hour, sometimes more, with each individual of these 1,000 people, either individually in their home, sometimes with their husband and wife, and sometimes a small meeting, usually in a very, very close personal relationship. So when we convert these people from skeptics, we give them the knowledge, we give them the power by exciting them, and we give them also alerts. We tell them on a regular basis, they will get in the mail alert from Washington on the important thing. And typically it's 6 to maximum of 8 times a year, we send them alert and say, this is the time to write. You already learn how to write. It's very simple. What we show them in the meeting, they read this kind of leaflet that we developed that show in very simple way, who are your congressperson, how to write a letter, and give them a sample letter. Very, very simple. You can see only 2 short paragraphs. And we put them on an alert network, and we send them these letters. We found out that, of course, not everybody will do it. When we made study after 6-month period, 9-month period, a year period, typically something the order of 40% of them write. 25% don't do anything after a while, 25 are dedicated, about 50 about half the time, and slowly this number decay. After a year to 2 years, maybe you get 30 to 35%. But this is what we want. We want to have the pressure on a congressperson at least 10 times what is today. We want 250, 350 letters to come. That's why we start with 1,000. We develop our system to live with human nature. We don't expect miracles. We don't demand very much. We ask them to come to 1 meeting. We ask them to do a minimum amount, write a letter, and we time. The time to write a letter is about 5 minutes. The simple letter that we are discussing how to write here. So it takes them only 5 minutes, 6, 8 times a year. We alert them so they don't have to know anything, they don't have to know what's happening in Congress and when. We give them all the information necessary. And then many of them fail to write after a while, which is normal and expected, but over the next few years we can assume that at least 1/3 of them will write. And that's what we want to achieve because it's so much more than 25 people. How do you do it? You have to have staff. Volunteers cannot do it. No matter how dedicated are the volunteers, they have to change diapers if they are young mothers. They have to go to work. They need to rest at night and watch television, and they are normal human beings with normal requirements. So we have to take into account that what you need is staff. You need to hire staff. And you train this staff, and this staff is the one that motivates, excites, and know what to do to get these 1,000 people. Typically, we get 100 people, that's our goal, per month. And therefore, to get 1,000 people, obviously, it's a 10-month cycle. And this 10-month cycle essentially costs $10,000. And approximately a third of the money comes from the local area, a third we can donate in the right congressional district, and a third comes from the people that recruit from these 1,000. And it varies. Each congressional district, the district is different. The number is not precise. It could be 800, it could be 1,200, depending on the congressional district, and how difficult it is, how large it is, if it's city versus rural area. And the division of money is also depending on each congressional district. What I want to tell you is that we are not only giving you idea in your congressional district, we want to work with you in each step of the way. We will train you, we'll help you to hire the staff, we'll help you to train the staff, or we'll train the staff completely ourselves. Anything that you do not have the capability, we'll supply. We'll give you matching fund when it's possible. And we will monitor and on-the-job training with your staff. So we'll do whatever is necessary to make this job successful in your own congressional district. And over the next 4, 5, 6 years, we hope to do it all across the country. And this is what we want to achieve in your own area. And I think that can be done, because what happened in the end, you will have the satisfaction of influencing your own congressperson so successfully and so powerfully that congressperson, you do what you want, which means will vote against every nuclear weapon that is coming to the House of Representatives.
A considerable majority of us Americans, 60 to 70% according to various opinion polls, want nuclear disarmament. But what does our government give us? Always more of the insane arms race. How can we focus on numerical strength to make Washington hear us? Let's be smart and concentrate our efforts on those members of the House of Representatives who sometimes vote disarmament, sometimes the arms race. We must make them realize that we are the majority. So write your member of Congress, not just once, not once a year, but every time an arms issue is coming up in the House, even if that means writing a couple of times a month. That's what I find myself doing. All Congress people agree that letters are impressive, for they correctly assume that for every letter writer, there are hundreds of people of the same opinion who don't take the initiative to write. So it's the numbers of letters that count. Don't worry whether you sound eloquent or like an expert in your letter. Just show which side you're on. Don't be hesitant. You are one of the majority. The country belongs to us, the people, not to Congress or the president. It's our children, our grandchildren, we're trying to save from nuclear madness. So come on, write your representative tonight. Get in the habit and keep writing. That's the important thing, to keep writing.
Number one, I want to remind you that the danger of the nuclear war is escalating. It's not going down, no matter what this administration is doing. Just read what the Center for Defense Information is saying about all the weapons that we have and what MIT is saying. Next thing I want to tell you that we have power, we have the ability. We can stop it. At least we can stop the escalation, and then we can go to the next step. How do we stop it? By taking the money out of the hand of the Department of Defense, by putting Congress under pressure, by concentrating on the House of Representatives, by pressuring all the swings we can to vote our way. How we do it? We do it in each and every congressional district, like the congressional district that you are in order to put so much pressure on your small congressperson that 1,000 people will be involved in the process, resulting in hundreds and hundreds of letters. Where are we now? We did it in 2 congressional districts. One of them was this congressional district of Matsui. When I met him first in 1982, towards the middle, he was supporting the freeze very heavily. And I took him to the corner during a TV presentation. I said, Congressman Matsui, I do not understand why you support the freeze, but you continue to support the MX and other nuclear weapon. He said, we cannot do anything in Congress. I said, I do not understand. You have control of the purse string. He said, no, I cannot. So We went and we got a large number of people and we put tremendous pressure on him, essentially exactly according to this technique. And this is nothing new. Other people are doing it, but not necessarily that way. So we put tremendous pressure on Congressman Matsui, and he is from that time on with us 100%. A very short time, within 3 to 4 months after we started, we read that over 500 letters came to Congressman Matsui's office against the MX. Then we started to work in the Vic Fazio area. As we were working in the Vic Fazio area, we realized that as we are going further, if we'll go one congressperson at a time, we would not be able to succeed to do very much. So what we did, we decided to go and start to branch out across the country. And that's how we developed Target Congress. The purpose of this project is to get as many congressional districts and as many activists in many areas across the country to be involved in that process of pressuring Congress, with the hope and the realization that if we really work together, within the next 4, 5, 6 years, we'll be able to get a majority in the House. And at the present time, we have a number of congressional districts in New Jersey and in Philadelphia that we have staff working there and doing these kind of activities, and we are planning to go to more, and that's the purpose of this tape, to excite you about the potential of Target Congress and induce you to participate in this project and do whatever you can in your own congressional district, knowing that we will be with you every step of the way. And I'd like to thank you for coming today to the presentation. It was a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you.